this video, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the new M4 Pro Mac Mini, but stick around to the end because I'll also be explaining why I've decided to return the M4 Pro Mac Mini, because it's just not quite the right device for me at this time. After watching loads of YouTube videos about the much hyped new M4 Mac Mini and M4 Pro Mac Mini, I decided to upgrade my M1 16-inch MacBook Pro, which had 16GB of unified memory and 1TB of SSD storage. And I decided to go for the M4 Pro Mac Mini, which comes with 24GB of memory and 512 storage. And I decided to go for the Pro version over the base model because I knew that some aspects of my workflow just require a bit more memory, and I also like having enough storage. Here are some of the things I thought about when I was making my initial buying decision, and I just outline them here in the video in case they're helpful to you if you're thinking about buying one of these. So the first thing I contemplated was whether this was a good time to upgrade, because Apple has obviously just released the new M4 chipset, and they've launched them in the Mac Mini and the new MacBook Pros and also the new iMacs. All of the benchmarks are objectively demonstrating that the new M4 chips are just much more powerful than the M1, operating at much faster speed and more efficiently. So I've been using my M1 MacBook Pro now for the past 3 years. It's been a brilliant device, total workhorse. For my needs, it's been really fast and powerful, and on the whole, it does most of what I need it to do. However, I have noticed that during some of my heavier workflows, in particular in Photoshop, where I have to quite often I run scripts to produce hundreds of mock-ups running in the background, I have noticed that my M1 MacBook Pro has really been struggling, and on quite a few occasions I've had that dreaded message where it pops up on the screen and says this application has run out of memory. So I was keen to get my hands on the new Mac Mini Pro and just see what it can do, especially because I was going with a version which has 24GB of unified memory, which is an upgrade from the 16GB in my M1 MacBook Pro. Obviously there's a huge difference between having a laptop and having a desktop. So for me it was a key consideration. Just having a desktop, replacing a laptop with a desktop, does have some advantages for me, as I've mostly been using my laptop in my home studio, and to be honest, at the 16-inch size, it's just too big to be truly portable for me. I'm pretty petite, so lugging this monstrously large laptop about on my back or in my suitcase is just not really practical, as I discovered on my trip to Singapore last year. So to all intents and purposes, I have been treating my laptop pretty much as a desktop. And I also have a 12.9-inch iPad Pro, which I tend to use on the go as my mobile device. But obviously for you, it will depend on your circumstances and your workflows and what you need in terms of portability. The Mac Mini is absolutely tiny. It just takes up a fraction of the space of the laptop on my desk, and it is a portable device because it's small enough, even with its cables and keyboard and mouse, it's small enough to go into a backpack or a bag and be taken with you. But obviously when you get to your destination, you'll need to plug it into some kind of monitor. And I have seen some YouTubers playing around with getting it set up with the iPad Pro, which I was quite interested in initially, but now on reflection, I think it's a bit of a faff. And obviously having a laptop just with a screen just offers a much easier on-the-go option for travel, unless you're going to have access to a monitor on the other end. So over the past few weeks, I have been using the Mac Mini and running some real-world tests just to see how much better this thing is, because my key driver for upgrading at this time is performance. So after nearly 2 weeks, here are the results, what I found when I was using this thing and putting it through its paces for my general workflow. So the first thing is, in relation to the Photoshop exercise that I tend to do on a regular basis because I have a number of online stores. I run a Photoshop script which produces bulk mock-ups for my products in the background, and I just did a bit of a dummy exercise on both machines simultaneously, and I'll put the results up here on screen so you can see. Whilst the Mac Mini was faster than the MacBook Pro, I have to say I was surprised that the difference between them was relatively small at around a minute. And similarly, I also did a few tests exporting 4K video because some of my workflow involves video editing. And again, I was quite surprised that the difference between the Mac Mini and the M1 MacBook Pro was actually only around a minute. And then finally, just in sort of everyday use, opening up applications, closing down applications, watching stuff, surfing on the internet, the usual stuff that people use these kinds of devices for, I didn't really notice that much of a difference between the two. Yes, the Mac Mini is a little bit faster than the M1 MacBook Pro, but to be honest, day to day, doing what I need to do, I was surprised I didn't really notice that big a difference between them. So finally, my sort of final reflections on this tiny little machine is I think it's an incredible device. And if you are upgrading from, some kind of Mac Intel product, you are going to notice a massive difference between what you currently have and this sort of new generation of chips. The form factor is obviously absolutely gorgeous. It's a tiny little device, takes up no room on the desk. To be honest, I had a little bit of difficulty trusting it to begin with, just because it's so tiny, and I was concerned it might feel a bit flimsy, but it really doesn't. It feels solid in the hand and on the desk. One of my sort of gripes about it, I suppose, is because it is so small, when you're sitting at your desk, you can see behind it the wires sticking out. And for me, the aesthetics of my desk are pretty important. I like things to look neat and tidy, and that wasn't really working for me. Anyway, so in conclusion, I think that I am ready to upgrade my M1 MacBook Pro laptop, but I'm not convinced that the M4 Pro Mac Mini is the right device for me to upgrade to at this time. I think I'm probably going to go either for a 14-inch M4 MacBook Pro or Max, or I'm going to wait until next year when Apple releases the Mac Studio. Anyway, let me know in the comments below whether you're thinking of upgrading, and if you are, I hope this video has been helpful. Thanks for watching.